Do you see this as a driving force for a change along the lines of the skills you just talked about into the wider industry, so it's beyond regulation, into just being good practice in the way the industry works?
Yeah, that's the vision I'm trying to figure out right now. We're struggling to do this for high-rise residential buildings. We're struggling. And most of those buildings are existing assets. So they're slightly more challenging around figuring out what is there at the moment. For new buildings, it's easy. There is no reason why the digital skill sets required to deliver new stuff aren't there already. The challenge is legacy assets, as I call them. We just don't have the technical toolkit to do that well. This is probably the first challenge I've seen that is not geared towards seniority. So whether you are a CEO, COO, CFO, mid-manager, graduate, we all have the same baseline. We all need to figure out how we evolve from our current position into a position where we share data really well.
Yeah.
We manage data in a collaborative and interoperable way. And it's a language, but it's a cultural change.
So the quality of work becomes a much more critical aspect.
Quality and competence in delivering quality is now so important. Quality was always a key deliverable. Time, cost, and quality. Quality piece has always been important. We've just allowed things to get done in a slightly different way and still be certified as good or practically complete. Now we have to prove that what we've done was not only right and fit and proper, but if the regulator asks the question, how did you do it? And were you competent enough to do it? And can you show me that you're competent? That's where there's a little bit of pushback now, because all of a sudden we have to be accountable. We have to step up. But I'm just nervous that culturally we're not here.
The way you use the word evolution here, and I think perhaps for colleagues at CITB who'll be listening to the conversation, reconciling it with the things we're doing, I think that might be easy to see some components of that. So we're doing work on the competence framework. So that starts to work with industry to put some of those foundational pieces in place. You'll start to put some suitable training assessment in place. And you've talked about the CSCS card, and we can do some work with what are the other opportunities that CITB has to help that transition?
You know, I think, and I've said this to many, CITB need to show leadership boldly to step into this space. We're tiptoeing around some of the obvious stuff. That bold leadership, I think, number one, that's CITB's role. Number two, plain language. We need to demystify, no acronyms, plain language, easily understood, bite-sized chunks. Learn as you have time to learn. At the Academy, we're offering macro-credentials, bite-sized chunks of learning. The whole way we learn has changed. The pandemic has positively disrupted a whole rate of traditional norms. And I think there's a real opportunity for CITB to reinvent how CITB lady payers and their people learn. We need to be having more of this at site level. I'm even thinking about toolbox talks on digital at site level. We're doing toolbox talks on health and safety. We need a toolbox talk on digital. We need a toolbox talk on the golden thread, for example. But to do that, site managers need to get their act together. But I'm excited because it's no longer an option. It has to happen. Someone has to lead.
Well, I was going to ask, what would your fears be for the industry if industry doesn't grasp this nettle?
You know, I get asked a question by some clients who said to me, Bola, what is the true cost of compliance with the Building Safety Act? And I looked at them, because there were 3 or 4 of them in the room, and I said 72 lives. The true cost of compliance with building safety are the 72 lives that have already been taken. That's the true cost. The actual cost is whatever you determine is the cost for you to upskill your team. And that's a paper cost, that's a paper value. But the true cost of the people that are no longer here. The sector has to change. I'm excited because I know that things will change. My concern is how long it's taken to tangibly happen at senior level all the way down to operational level. And 7 years in, I'm just not convinced we're going to get. And 3 million people in our sector, Adrian, that have to figure out what digital means to them.
So I'm hearing some of the things that will underpin this transformation. One is CITB recognizing the way we deliver our product and services, that actually the way that people need to consume be more flexible, more modular, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that starts with the competence frameworks, obviously. The thing we've been talking about has come from quite a terrible place to start off with what happened at Grenfell. But looking forward, do you think this transition that needs to happen is also the key to achieving more positive change in that regard too?
We talk about achieving net zero by 2050. 80% of those buildings are already here, where you're going to need data-driven solutions akin to digital twins, right? Because we need to measure that carbon piece in real time. Every building has to have its own footprint, and that footprint can only be really measured in the right granularity with a digital twin. So if you do the heavy lift required to comply under building safety, you can pivot very quickly into decarbonization. So one feeds the other, and I think that's why we have no choice, right? If we're going to get this planet into a better place, we've got to think about decarbonisation of existing legacy assets. And that's largely what the Building Safety Act is forcing us to do. So, they're all related. It's not rocket science, really, but there's an upskilling piece required.
And a change of pace, by the sounds of it. 2050 is only about 25 years away, so we need to pick up the pace.
When I think about what we have achieved in 7 years in the UK, it's completely disproportionate. The amount of effort that's gone into it by some of us versus where we are today is disproportionate. The level of understanding, with the resources, with the training and the upskilling piece, with the conversations, and by getting young people into that conversation, it will expedite. So I'm absolutely convinced that within 5 to 10 years, we'll have a different landscape in the UK. Question is, will we still be relatively a first or second mover in a global perspective? Because where will the UK be from a competitive advantage in 5 to 10 years? Will we still be number 1 or 2? We may drop to 3 or 4, maybe 5. But the digital unlocks all of this stuff.
It's been great talking to you, Bola. The conversation's gone a bit further than I thought. I think Building Safety Act, you've opened my eyes a little bit. Not only is it the things that I would have connected with it, like the competence frameworks and the modular training and things that we're doing, but also we started to get into productivity, into net zero, into actually attracting the right people in for the future. So it's been a conversation I'm sure we'll carry on having. You are an ambassador. It's great to have had you here to talk to people today. So thank you very much.
Of course, appreciate that.